Hey everyone. Today we are learning to fly. Sometimes in midlife, we feel like we're on the downward, and it can feel like the plane is going down instead of going up. And today we're actually talking about no, we are built to fly in every season of life. And so we're actually talking about a book called Built to Fly. And the guest is very near and dear to my heart. His name is Eric Scofield, and otherwise known as Sco by all of the people who know him. And he's done a lot of things. He has been in Young Life in many capacities for years. He has two sons. He has an incredible wife, Marnie. They live in Colorado Springs. He's currently the SVP at Norwood Development Group. He's done all these incredible things in his life, as well as being a speaker and a writer. But to me, he actually is especially significant because he was my husband's Young Life leader. And Eric Scofield changed the trajectory of our family because of his investment into a ninth grade basketball player. And he is one of the most remarkable people that I've ever met because of the way that he impacts people. And now my son, Stetson, has gone on some golf trips with him. Sco runs something called Golf and Grow, and he takes people golfing and encourages them. And people like my son, Stetson, who have also grown to love him. And he's just an incredible human. So when he wrote the book, Built to Fly, Stories to Touch Your Heart, Motivate Your Mind, and inspire you to soar as God designed you to do, I just knew it was going to be an incredible book of stories and really touching stories. And it is. And I just ordered 5 more copies for my kids and more friends. So, Sco, welcome. We are
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you here.
I'm loving being here. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, well, so I want to start by just talking about the core story that the book is titled after, and it's about your dad building a plane in a neighborhood, by the way. So
That's right.
can you just tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
So obviously the cover of the book is my dad's plane, which he built. I looked it up because I was like, gosh, how old was he? He was 41 years old. We lived on a cul-de-sac with all kind of middle-class families, dentists, and people who owned sporting goods stores. My dad was 41, and he was building this airplane in our garage. He was drying the wings because, right, it's a biplane, so there's 4 wings, really. Those wings would dry in our living room. I mean, what my mom had to go through, who knows? But everybody on the street thought my dad was crazy until he rolled that plane out into the street without the wings and started the engine. And that was the first day that all the kids on the block were like, oh my gosh, this is a real airplane. And obviously, he went on to fly it, and he also crashed it. So when you build an airplane as an experimental airplane, you have to fly it 50 hours before anybody can go up with you. So my dad would often get in his car on a Saturday morning because he worked a full-time job at IBM and played tennis and did all the things. This was just a little hobby. And he would drive out to the airport and he would tell all the kids on the street, I was in 3rd grade, I'm going to be flying over in about an hour,
Oh
look for
gosh.
me. And we would all be in the street on our bikes and we could hear him in the distance. And then this one day, we did this many Saturdays, but this one Saturday, as he's flying over the street, as he's going over us, you hear the engine cut out. Of course, when you're a kid, you're just like, oh, I'm sure that was part of the plan. It wasn't part of the plan. And about, 15 minutes later, I'm inside my house eating graham crackers and milk, which every 3rd grader should do. And the phone rings. Remember those phones? And I pick up the receiver at the same time somebody else does. And I hear the person on the other end say, is this Shirley Scofield? Yes, it is. Your husband has crashed his airplane. That's all I heard. I ran out of the house. I ran down the street in my socks, ran through the forest and down to where I thought he crashed it, which would be Commercial Street. And I'm sitting there and I don't see any airplane. And a guy in a Trans Am pulls up because you can see I have no shoes on and I'm crying and I'm in third grade. This guy in a Trans Am pulls up, rolls down the window and says, "Kid, are you okay?" I said, "No, I'm not okay. My dad crashed his airplane. I got to find him." And I get into this complete stranger's Trans Am. This is 1973. He believed me. We drive in and out of every little neighborhood. And finally, we see 8 police cars, 2 fire trucks, 2 ambulances. And I just get out of his car. I tear through the barricade. And I run down, and there's my dad's plane. And the picture's in the book of the crashed plane. And my dad comes out of the house, and I just tear across the lawn and launch into his arms.
Oh.
I can smell his Old Spice. I can see the United States flag, Bob in cursive right here. And I'm like, I'm good. The next day, that came home on a flatbed truck. And my dad immediately started tearing apart the wings, and he rebuilt it. And 9 months later, it was in the air. I was the first one to go up with him. It's still flying to this day in Europe, that plane.
Oh, wow.
But what I just say to people is there are so many people that crash. They didn't want to crash. They didn't mean to crash. It's a broken relationship. It's a marriage that didn't go the way they wanted to. They got a report from the doctor. Their kids, they keep believing their kids, you're not smoking pot, but then they are, or they don't come home when they're supposed to, or their self-esteem, or fill in the blanks. We all have crashes, and it's what we do with them. My dad, that was an awful crash. That was a humiliating crash. That was a devastating crash. And he could have just as easily said, "Take it to the junkyard. I'm done." But he came home. Here we go. And he started the process of putting it back together one step at a time. And of course, the ultimate, right, would be Jesus. Everybody thought Jesus crashed. He's on the cross. He dies. They put him in the tomb. It's over. Crashed. It's Tony Campolo, it's Friday, but Sunday's coming. And he didn't crash. He came out. And so I just think I take a lot of lessons from my dad's plane, which is you're built to fly, not to live in the crash.
It's so hopeful to me. And it's that inspiration of like, no, let's rise back up. Because honestly, by midlife, we've all had some failure. We've all had some crashes. We just have. I mean, and if you haven't yet, they're coming. It's just that's life. That's living on this side of heaven, that we crash and our kids crash and the people around us crash. And it could be, like you said, it could be anything, something we chose or something we didn't choose, like cancer, or something that happens to us that we didn't anticipate. But that built to fly, to me, that message is so core, because we are that in every season of life, God has designed us, has a plan for us. And like you said, he had to choose it. It's a choice. He could have packed it in and said, "Okay, I'm done," which looking at that scenario, I maybe would have been the one that's like, "Okay, done with the plane." I mean, especially that terrifying moment of him crashing, he could have died and he didn't. So that's a really powerful, powerful image.
There's a kid in my group that isn't in my group anymore because he's at a different school. But if you go back 8 months, his dad called me twice and they were crashing, just crashing. And he even said, "I don't know what to do." But they rallied, he and his wife. They sent their son to a school 3 hours away. He's thriving. And honestly, those 2 phone calls, even in my feeble mind, I thought, "Oh my gosh, it's pack it up." But they were like, "No, here comes the flatbed. We are going to rise." And this kid's thriving as a result of his parents making some hard decisions, and it's awesome. So,
And it sounds like they used the wisdom of what they knew to maybe change course. Because when I hear the like, well, then he built the plane again, I'm
That's
thinking
right.
about your mom, who maybe is like, where's the wisdom here? Where's the wisdom in going back up in the air when we have children to feed? And I'm assuming he built the plane with a different plan or with modifications based on what he learned, that it's not just get
Absolutely.
up and do the same thing over. It's take the information that you've learned through the crash and rebuild the plane.
100%. Could not be more true than that. That's good. Yeah.
So there's a part in your book where you talk about life coaching, and I have to jump on this because you're speaking my language, this whole chapter.
Yeah.
But one of the quotes was, wise planning doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. And when we look at how much we plan in life, I mean, we plan everything. We plan vacations. We do
Yeah.
meal planning with groups, and we plan for our workouts and who we're meeting at the gym and, signing up for classes. We sign all these things. But in the work that I do, I find this a lot. But people don't always take the time to plan their life. That would they plan all the little things, and sure, those things matter. I'm not throwing those under the bus, but how do we plan for life?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan. I'm at the Rancho Bernardo Inn. I'm at a big meeting. There's 30 people at the table. My boss at the time has a throwaway comment at the end of dinner. Hey, everybody, tomorrow we're going to meet at 9. Oh, by the way, I've got room for 2 people. If anybody wants to do life coaching, I'll pay for half for a year, he says. And everyone's quiet. The evening's coming to a close. And I go to my room that night. And I'm on the phone with somebody because I say, yeah, what's this with this life coaching? Everybody was just like, I'm a type A person. I get stuff done. I'm a great plan. What? And the person on the other side of the phone said, well, why don't you try it? I mean, you're kind of knocking it. And I was like, there is no way that somebody can get on the phone with me and help me in any way, shape, and form. I'll do it. So the next day I went up to him. I said, how many people did you have take you up on it? He said, none. I said, well, I'll take one. So the next thing, I had to interview 3 coaches. I interviewed these 3 coaches on the phone, 15 minutes per coach. And I picked my guy, Dennis Blevins from Portland, Oregon. He's a navigator. He's 10 years older than me. I was like, so Dennis and I start. One of the first things Dennis gave me was Proverbs 23, 3 and 4 in like the living version. And it says, any enterprise is built by wise planning, becomes strong through common sense, and profits wonderfully by keeping abreast of the facts.
Mm.
This is life coaching. So we start. I'll go kind of to the end, first of all, of just the first year. I lost 28 pounds. I bought 2 rental houses. I wrote the draft of this. I took my wife on more dates than I ever had. I took my boys on a trip. I got life insurance. The first year alone was a game changer. And you say, well, why? Why would that make such a difference? Because we set out a plan, a life plan, and then we met every 2 weeks to keep abreast of the facts.
Mm.
And that for me was a game changer. I did more than I ever would have thought possible. So it works. And what I would say to the cocky myself is, who do you think you are that you wouldn't take a step back and say to yourself, okay, your kids are 12 right now, but in 10 years they'll be 22. And what are your goals? And what do you think? And you want to have this much money when you're 65. And how would you get there? And so just like we do in every other aspect of our lives. So it's a worthy venture for sure.
So how have you maintained that kind of momentum in your life? What have been some other ways you've done that maybe isn't formal life coaching?
The biggest would be my covenant group. Okay. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Okay. We call it a covenant group. It's also in the book. No, nothing's a secret. Nothing is
The
trademarked,
yellow
right?
chair. The yellow chair.
The yellow chair. So every single year, I go away with these 8 guys. We do calls, throughout the year. We break up into triads and duos and, all the different things. You get your intentions. I think my journal, because I'm in a new journal, but my old journal has the kind of what I taped on when we were together in January for the year. So imagine you're in a covenant group. You're walking life with a few people. I mean, that's really all that it is. Walking life with some people, and then taking an inventory of your life. Okay, so the very first year we met, 22 years ago, we're at a ranch in Texas, and everything's leather in this living room. Everything's leather except for one thing: the one fabric yellow chair. So we set that up in front of the fireplace and said, okay, everybody, when it's your moment, you sit in the yellow chair. We didn't really think much of the yellow chair, other than when a person got into the yellow chair, they were going to sit there for an hour and 15 minutes. You're going to go over your survey from your wife. Where were you a good husband? Where were you a good father? Survey from your kids, survey from a couple coworkers. You're going to look at your goals from the previous year, your goals for the upcoming year. You're going to and you're going to do that heart moment, like, how am I? Really? How are you? Really? How's your marriage? Really? How's your relationship with your kids, with your full-time job, and you're so busy? And statistically, it says you only talk to them less than 15 minutes a day, if that. Really? So you take the yellow chair. When you get out of the yellow chair after an hour and 20 minutes, you look back at the yellow chair and you're like, I hate the yellow chair. I never want to sit in a yellow chair. I'm sweaty from the yellow chair. Get me out of the yellow chair. But you look back at the yellow chair and you're like, that was good. Most people don't sit in the yellow chair. They sit in the yellow chair with their waiter or waitress who doesn't bring their baked potato on time. They sit in the yellow chair, but they don't actually turn inward and go, okay, I'm going to do a little mini 360 on my life. And I'm down to like, 3,800 days left to live statistically. So take the yellow chair and take an assessment of where are you? Where are you with the Lord? Are you closer to the Lord today than you were last year? Is there anything in your life that Ephesians 4:27, that Satan has a foothold in your life? Footholds, if you've ever been to a climbing gym, are little tiny small rocks. And I watched a climbing wall get built, and the guy walks up there and he's just little yellow rock. And you're like, really? Someone can climb to the very top? Oh, yeah. All they have to be able to do is just grip that this much, and they can navigate that whole thing. And so we take the yellow chair and we ask ourselves, is there any place in your life that Satan has come up and little broken relationship, little, something you're like, and you take the yellow chair. I mean, like for me in 2012, it was a voicemail from my wife saying, I think you drink too much alcohol. And then she left the same voicemail for one of my other covenant brothers, who, when we were getting our voicemail, he looked across at me like, and she basically said, in case Eric doesn't say something, I'm leaving you the same voicemail. I want him to talk about this in the yellow chair. And I only gave up alcohol for a year, I thought. But that year was so good that I ran it again and I ran it again. And I think I'm on 12 years. But it all came from the inward inspection of your life and the yellow chair. And that in and of itself is how that life coaching kind of keeps on going, right?
Yeah, I mean, hold up. You give your kids and your wife a survey, basically, just
It's
like
in the
people
book.
do at
It's in the
work.
back of the book, right?
Yeah.
There it is. What are some of the things you would like to talk to your dad about and why? Oh my gosh. What are 3 things your dad are really good at? Is there any fears you have that you'd like your dad to pray for you about? Is there anything really cool that you'd like to do with your dad? A trip? I mean, this is Pater. Is there any more valuable commodity than your kid? We do this with coworkers.
Right,
What are
that's
your
what I
favorite
mean.
snacks? If we have a meeting, want to make sure. Are you kidding me? Invest in your family.
Mm-hmm. It's so powerful. I mean, it is so incredibly powerful because you're right. We do this in other arenas. We're required to do it in other arenas. I mean, 360 reviews are a thing at work, right? You're
That's right.
required to do that. And yet, how often do we do it in our own lives and ask the people for feedback? I mean, one of the things that, I study a lot about because of my coaching is self-awareness. Tasha Eurich, who's a great researcher on self-awareness, she talks about there's two threads of it. You have the introspection, but without the external.
That's right.
Asking other people, what is it like being on the other side of me right now? That you have incomplete self-awareness. Only 10% of people are truly aware. And I would gather that those 10% have done that. They have asked other people around them, what is it like for you?
And right, the theme is built to fly. If you're going to be built to fly, you got to take the yellow chair. You got to do the introspection, and you also have to find out, how am I arriving for people? And it's amazing what what my boys will say to me, and I'm like, really? Okay, yeah, you're right. You don't want to hear it.
You're not wrong. Is what I often say. You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
Okay, I am thinking of the person who's listening, who is thinking, yes, I want this, but I don't have that group that I've had for 20 years, and it really sounds vulnerable. Where would you suggest somebody starts if they want to create something like this, but feel like they don't know who they would ask to be part of it?
I have an image of Betsy McKillop and Ann Miller. Ann Miller was the secretary at the high school, and Betsy McKillop was a non-working doctor's wife. I mean, I'm sure she did lots of things, and one day I'm walking to the high school and I pass Betsy's Camry, and inside the Camry is Ann Miller, who has obviously walked out of the high school, across the street, got into the Camry. And there over the center console of the Camry is a little checkered napkin and a little vase with a flower. And then I could tell they were having lunch, and I could tell there was a little coffee cup because it was steaming the windshield of the car. And so later I asked Betsy, I said, what is that? Just basically, she goes, we walk life together. So it can start with one.
Yes.
And it can start with a coffee.
Yes.
And it can start with somebody having the courage to say, I didn't think I'd be where I am in this arena of my life. And I'm going to share it with you. You know what the other person's going to automatically do almost 90% of the time after you share, after you guys talk? They're going to say, there's, hey, you should say that because there's so I think it starts with one person. Could be a person from your church, could be a neighbor, could be another mother, father of a group. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, I'm meeting a guy for lunch today. We've never met. We hardly know each other. I know what we're going to talk about. It's always the same thing. Everybody wants to fly. Everybody wants to fly. You're built to fly. Don't worry about 8. Don't worry about 22 years. Worry about 1 and 1 coffee.
Yes. I mean, I don't know why that really touched me to hear you say that about the checkered napkin and the console. Like that just, it feels so simple and so beautiful. And I think we overcomplicate it. And, now everyone's running around like, where do I find the yellow chair? I need to go find, no, it's not about the yellow chair, right? Because didn't you say the yellow chair was that only the first year?
We never had a yellow chair.
Yeah, that was it. It's not like you brought the yellow chair with you. It's the metaphorical object of the concept. And I think we can apply that concept really creatively in whatever situation fits best. I mean, if you're better one-on-one, okay, one-on-one, great.
100%.
But can you talk about what does it do in us to be known at that level, Sco? Why? Why is it so important to be known?
Well, we're designed to be known, number one. And think about James 5:16 in the Phillips. It says, think about this. Get in the habit of confessing your sins one to another and pray for one another so that you will be healed.
Mm-hmm.
And church, right, in Jesus' time was a rallying together to be encouraged to get back out there. So everybody wants to be known. I mean, like I've sat in so many cabin times in my life, and the one thing that's always true is whenever you're in a cabin time where somebody finally breaks through and they say something vulnerable, everything takes off, and then everybody goes out for ice cream at the end of the night at camp and says, "What? That was the best cabin time we've ever had."
Mm-hmm.
You're designed to be vulnerable. It's the world that tells you don't be vulnerable. Don't listen to the world. The world is agnostic. The world is an atheist. Jesus would tell you, oh my gosh, just, the woman comes before him, tells him her whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere in scripture, look for it. It's being known.
Mm-hmm. And look for it in those innocent conversations that you're not thinking it's about to take a big turn. And then
Right.
somebody says something, and the way you receive it is going to determine how the conversation goes and whether you really delve down into that vulnerability. I think we have to be ready to accept people's moments where they're maybe testing it a little bit and say, yes, I can be that person for you right now.
That's right.
And maybe not be so focused on what we need, but be focused on what the people in front of us need. And then they will be prepared to meet our needs when we need that back.
Yes, 100%. And I love that. And it's true. I remember Mike Yaconelli, who passed away, used to run youth specialties, and he'd say, "Here, I tell people how to spend time with their kids." And he goes, "I'm underneath my car and I'm changing the oil, and the oil dripped out and it got in my eye. And my kid rolls up under next to me and says, 'Dad, can we talk?'" And it was like, really, really, you got to take it when you can get it.
That's right.
Totally. Yes. One of Eric's favorite parts of the book is you talking about being fat. That's not something we welcome usually as a word, but can you tell, what do you mean by that? What is a fat person?
So basically, I mean, years ago, I had 30 kids in a breakfast Bible study, and I remember saying to my mentor, I said, "How do you determine?" Because every year I'd get it wrong. I'd say, "Yeah, that kid's going to be the leader or the really good disciple or that," and I'd get it wrong, and I'd get it wrong, and he spun it on me. He'd say, "Who's faithful? Who's available? And who's teachable?" When I laid that rubric down, that lens, and was like, okay, all of a sudden I was like, the people that maybe I wouldn't have picked just kept popping up. They're faithful. They show up. You're asking for this. You're asking for that. I'll help. I'll do it. Whatever. They're available. They're up always for whatever. Hey, we're gonna do the nanny. Who's in? I'm in. Right. And they're teachable. They're curious and they want to learn. Again, this morning I had 25 guys at my house. Not this morning, but oftentimes I'll throw out a little challenge, right? And it's amazing. 3 or 4 people only will take that challenge, and they needed that challenge. They wanted that challenge. So, in your life, in your friendships, who's faithful, who's available, and who's teachable? Run with those people. And it might not always be the people that you'd be like, I want it to be that person, though. No. When you lay that down, it's amazing to see who surfaces. And, another mentor of mine, Morris Dirk, said there's a lot of people who collect stamps and coins and they collect cars. He goes, I collect friends. And I collect friends who are faithful, available, and teachable. So that's the theme of that.
It's great. And when I read that chapter, I was just thinking about, I can't be available for everyone. And so who is it that I can be available for? And where can I keep showing up faithfully? And how can I be teachable? I think as I look at cultivating those things in my own life, how do you discern that? Because you're a person in high demand. So how do you discern that?
Well, you did a good job right there of flipping it and looking inward, right? Am I faithful? Am I showing up to the things that I said I would, that I committed to? This is good, right? Am I available? Or am I always so busy? People are like, am I available? And am I teachable?
Mm-hmm.
So that is a good lens. I got a text not yet yesterday, but the day before from somebody I don't know. They were in Colorado Springs. They sent a text and said, "Hey, you know, you spoke at our thing, and I'm in town. Could we meet?" And so I texted him back and said, "I'm leading a Bible study at 6:30. Here's the address. Here's the suite. Come. I'll take you to coffee after." I never really thought he'd come because he's 24 years old, and he'd probably have to get up at 5:30 to make it to this thing and all the things. But he showed up. So,
Wow.
and he said, "I didn't think you'd text back." And I said, "Well, I texted you back something tough to do, and you did it. So, yeah, we'll walk across the street. I'll buy you a cup of coffee." But sometimes you lay that out there and they don't. So you got to run with the people who want to run with you.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you're running with the people who, are counting on you to run with them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I just love it. I love it. I love it, Sco. Okay, we got to talk about the Russian chocolate because I think that's one of my favorites. I just feel like there is the deepest lesson in this story. So can you just
Yeah.
quickly?
So basically, one of my young life kids, Jim, was on his way back from a mission trip, and anyway, he's in Russia. I think he was in Russia. It's Germany, whatever. He's in an airport, and he's going to be there for 14 hours. And it started at 9 o'clock at night. His plane's not going to leave the next morning. They're out of money. They have nothing, and they do this terrible thing. I mean, it's terrible. But they saw this display of chocolate, famous, Belgium, Russian chocolate. It's gold covered, wrapped, and they are so hungry, and there is no one in this airport, and they come up and connive a plan to basically see if they can't break into this display, which they do. They pull that glass, they slide, they come up with this really, which by the way, we do that when you're doing something wrong, you come up with really crazy reasons why it's not wrong.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, you do.
But they do, and they take it, and they separate, and they say, we won't see each other for 3 hours, so we don't want to be together. And they go to the separate bathrooms, and they finally get to the place, the door's closed, and they're going to eat the chocolate. And he opens it up, and it just crumbles into powder. This chocolate has been in this, place. And so the takeaway is, listen, sin, it talks about it in James 1:15. Sin is a lure.
Mm-hmm.
It captures your attention. It is gold. It is shiny. It is something that you're like, you cannot quelch your desire to kind of want that. And we all have the moment where you're like, no, I want that chocolate. And you finally get what you want, and it never fulfills you.
Mm-hmm.
If you read in James 1:15, it basically says that there's this desire, and then eventually it gives birth, and eventually it grows up, and it is death.
Mm-hmm.
And when we give in to basically sin, in the end, it equals death. Not death like you're not going to die, but a piece of you, will die, and only because it's too good. And I'll just comment on it quickly. There was a group of boys that stole candy from a kid on Halloween. It's in the book. It's called, the Yoda and the Hobo. Anyway, these
So
boys
also one of
stole.
my favorites.
It's a great story, but they steal the candy. They get what they want. It's a great, and they end up at the elementary school where they're going to divide up the candy and all get in their separate cars and all go home because they've done the coup. They stole the candy. Big pillowcase of candy. When they got to the elementary school, the one kid goes, "Yeah, I don't want it," and the other, I don't want. None of them wanted the candy. They threw it away. They got what they wanted, but it was never designed to give them life. And that's John 10:10, right? The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But if he put up a big banner and said, I'm going to steal from you, I'm going to destroy you, I'm going to kill you,
Yeah.
you would see that coming.
Mhm.
And so actually, there's a quote. I just gave a sermon on Sunday, so I'm going to read you the quote because it's right here. Didn't plan on reading you this quote, but it's so good. And it's from C.S. Lewis's book. Indeed, the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without any sudden turnings, without any milestones, without any signposts,
Mm.
so that you don't know where you're going. I love that.
Mm. Yeah, so we need a life that has some signposts. That intentionality of the people and the plan
That's
gives
right.
us some signposts to say you're off course.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's
You know,
right.
the chocolate story, I think what's so interesting about that one to me is it literally disintegrates in their hands. And it's such a powerful visual because that is what happens, that we get what we want and then it disintegrates in our hands. And it's that, where does it start? It starts with a thought. And then
That's
that
right.
thought turns into, okay, now we believe that thought. And now we start living out of that thought. So it's that, John Mark Comer has that book, Live No Lies, which is this whole concept. It's like, well, what we believe is really important because then we start living out of those things. And if it's a lie, now we live out of that lie. And then that becomes action. And that action has consequences one way or
That's
another.
right.
It's powerful. Like, this isn't just about chocolate. This is about our life.
You're built to fly. Don't eat the chocolate. Don't buy into the lie, or you'll be grounded.
Mhm.
Yes. Sco, as we wrap up today, what would your encouragement be specifically to people in midlife who are feeling like, I'm not flying, or if I am flying, I'm going down? This life didn't turn out the way that I thought. Things are so much harder than I thought.
Mhm.
What would your just word be to them?
Well, the first thing would be to find a way to acknowledge it. Maybe you journal about it, you share it with somebody. Catch yourself. Where are your kids not where you thought, or where is your marriage not where you thought, or where is your self-esteem not where you thought, or where just acknowledge where
Yes.
is it. I think that's step one,
Mm.
is to just go, you know what?
Mhm.
Life is hard, and this is kind of where I am. What I would call that is rolling back the yellow tarp. Again, we won't go into the story, but just
Mhm.
have the courage. The yellow tarp is meant by cops to cover up dead bodies at accidents. Don't know why it's yellow, but the world would say cover up, cover up, cover up. And I would say find somebody to just roll the yellow tarp back a little bit and say, okay, here's where I am. And I believe that will start the process of moving the other direction. I
Mhm.
really do. I know it to be true.
So good. One of the things I left a review on Amazon of your book because I
Thank
wanted
you.
to. I don't do that very much, but I what I called it, and I really believe this, is it's a Swiss Army knife. You can pull it out at the campfire, you can pull it out at the dinner table, you can pull it out on a vacation by a pool, you can read a chapter before bed, you can read it in your devotional. There's very few books that I find. It's a great read aloud. Very few books do I find that would be appropriate for all of those different places. And that is why I think this book is so compelling to me. It has great stories, but also it's entertaining because you're very entertaining. But those deeper lessons are so profound in the book. You have both. And so thank you for writing it, Sco. And I thank you for writing it because it is a gift and one that I will keep passing along.
Well, you guys are both amazing. Our Time to Rise is amazing. Your coaching is amazing. May everybody seek you out for advice, and thank you for the opportunity to even I'm encouraged just talking all the different things we talked about today. I'm like, okay, yes.
And thank you for impacting my family for eternity.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We love you, Sco.
Bye.